Dear David, missing you here on Earth. As this day to commemorate your life approached, I have been revisiting events surrounding the way you were murdered. There is a lot of mystery. The mystery is still unsolved. You would have been the best person to bring your death to rest in our hearts. I composed another song for you this year, but I can't get myself to sing it. I am always reminded about the events and words spoken following your death. In case you missed some of it, this letter brings it to you, my comrade. Do you remember that you and I last spoke over the phone on January 25th, 2011, just a day before you left for good? Yes, I was in my office at the Coalition of African Lesbians in Boksburg, South Africa, and you were at your home in Mukasa. I called to establish your security needs, given that you and two other activists were facing threats day in, day out, following your victory with the Rolling Stones tabloid court case. I called those activists too. As head of the Human Rights Defenders Project at CAL, the Coalition of African Lesbians, I was working on gathering resources for your safety. Dude, I had no idea you were leaving. I remember I remember your email had been hacked days before. I was collaborating with Andrea at Frontline Defenders for a new, safe email for you and other resources. It was going to take some time as they were still gathering information. So that day, you and I worked on a new Gmail account for you that you asked me to share with just a few of your trusted comrades. Do you remember that communication? Anyways, we said goodbye to each other with a plan to resume your safety plan the following day, after you had sent me some write-up of your situation for documentation and lobbying for resources. Do you remember that you went silent the following day? That you did not write to me? That I kept checking my email to see if you had sent something? I had no idea that at some point that day you had been murdered. My day went on with me working on other issues on the continent. My colleagues and I at the Coalition of African Lesbians worked late that day. At about 6 p.m. Johannesburg time, we left the office. While in the car driving to the home of one of the colleagues, I received a call from Andrea at Frontline Defenders. That was about 7 p.m. in Uganda. The call wasn't very clear, but Andrea mentioned your name, and I heard him say that he had received a message from Uganda informing him that David was blah blah blah. I couldn't understand what he was saying. Immediately, I called your phone, but it was off. I then called 3 of your colleagues in Uganda and asked them about you. One did not receive. Another told me that they had not heard from you that day. The third told me that they were not well and had spent their day at home, but had spoken to you earlier when you were requesting for some money to get on a border to town since you were broke. It got me concerned that I could learn anything that could have happened to you from someone in Dublin, Ireland, and that I could not reach you. I implored the third colleague to find out where and how you were. I called several activists and pleaded with them to get out of their houses and look for you. My heart was unsettled, eyes on my phone constantly, in case I got an update from Uganda. Eventually, a call came in, and your colleague, who I had asked to find out where and how you were, informed me that it seemed you had been killed. David, my heart stopped. But she added that she was yet to confirm. I prayed that it was not true. Chills kept going through my entire body. My colleagues and I scared. We sat, confused, and hoping it was not true. Dude, I refused to even imagine you gone for good. I really do not remember how long the wait was before a confirmation came in. Your colleague finally called and confirmed that you had been murdered. David, I froze. We all sat in our colleague's house in Boksburg, crying. You were gone, bro. I kept thinking that I was dreaming. Then I would realize that we were all awake and faced with the reality. David, it was hard to digest that news. I had spoken to you the day before. How could you be gone? I believe that you knew what was about to happen. You tried to save yourself, bro. Long story short, the Coalition of African Lesbians purchased a ticket for me to fly to Uganda to bid my farewells to you that night. I boarded a South African Airways flight to Entebbe in the afternoon of the following day. I felt lost on that 4-hour flight. It was the longest 4-hour flight that I had ever taken. I cried. I smiled. I thought. I remembered. I entered denial mode. I blamed myself. And all of these things again and again. Finally, I arrived at Entebbe International Airport, where I was received by your dear friend Naomi Rosindana. She confirmed again that indeed you were no more. We cried, laughed, remembered you again and again. We got to your house in the night. Yes, there was a vigil at your house, a fire in the middle of your yard, the sign that someone had died. It was you, David. I entered your house, and there in the middle of your living room you lay still in your coffin. Speechless, I lowered myself and stared at your still body. What had they done to your skin? It was smooth. You looked clean. You had the best suit on. How I wish these were bought for you while you stood out there numerous times to fight for all of us. Anyway, the night was filled with songs for you by your friends and family. David, the following morning was painful. The program for your burial was announced by your family. It was time for us to take you to where your ancestors lay. It was time to take you there and leave you there. I cannot express to you how it felt. I wonder how you were feeling, bro. A hammer wound on your head, a still body, surrounded by masses, a hurting mother constantly seated by your coffin, true colors of humans masked, tears everywhere. Were you able to read people's thoughts? If you did, I wonder how that played out in your mind. How did you feel when your blood-soaked clothes that you were wearing when you were killed kept exchanging hands within the community in a plastic bag? Your own blood, bro. At your mother's home, where your body was taken, we found lots of people. Kuchus, human rights defenders, family, friends started pouring in. The road to your ancestral home was busy. Journalists from all over the world were present. Did you see the drama that morning? There was a scramble for interviews in the Kuchu tent and by the roadside. Yes, bro, I saw that myself. I was approached by journalists for interviews, but I could not engage. I just couldn't. In fact, a couple of us sent off our backs in anger. We sent them off. Dude, most of the European Union diplomatic missions were there. The United States too. Then the speeches started. Endless. Did you hear all the praises for you? How did you feel about that? Man, the world appreciated your work only after your death. Did you hear Barack Obama's letter being read out? Did you wish, David, did you wish that you had been given audience with him and the likes while you still breathed? I think you had powerful messages for people like him. Bro, your death was a headline on the world's major news channels. Do you remember that you had contacted Rachel Maddow with the help of our personal friends in the US about some work on Uganda? Man, she was on it when you were murdered. Your move was not in vain. I don't think you even want me to go on about the dramatic and hate-filled local pastor that led the service at your funeral, because I saw you in action for almost an hour. Your spirit was present. We felt it. The Kuchus were empowered. The villagers and lots of homophobes were fighting you and us. The kuchus refused to be bullied. In fact, one activist chased the pastor off the platform, took the mic away from him, and then it was about us. Your mother ordered us, go and lay your friend to rest. Yes, because the other people did not want to give that to your body. They felt that you were not worth it. They promised to rape and kill us. Security was tight, bro. Did you see the police? All missions and defender organizations stood up to honor your barrier and to protect us. It was so disheartening, David. I wish you could have risen up and walked in that moment. We had to be evacuated from your village, David. Yes, the villagers were so hateful towards you and us. From your village, we headed to a lesbian bar in Tinda. Did you follow us there? Did you hear all the testimonies from people who loved you and valued your work and contribution to the struggle? Did you see any hypocrites? Did you see the trauma? Did you hear planning about how to use your land and house? Had you left instructions for that, by the way? I learned that day that on the day you were murdered, you were asking around for 2,000 Ugandan shillings. That's about $1 for a border ride to town. When you couldn't find that help, why did you give up asking, David? Did you know that your killer was coming for you? I guess you did, because you warned. Now here is one of the key reasons I wrote you this letter. David, there are unanswered questions about your death. It is kind of a mystery. Help me to understand it. So this man, Enoch Nsubuga, was arrested, and he pleaded guilty for having killed you. He claimed it was in self-defense. I didn't believe those claims. Dude, I know who you are. I know your character. The reason I ask you, bro, is because a lot has been said about your death. If a man came forward and claimed to have murdered you with a hammer, how then is it possible that the following issues came up? There was an investigation that took place. During this investigation, members of the community were interrogated by a lawyer. The lawyer had received claims from community members and leaders that some activists were involved in your murder. Rumors about this were circulating in our community and even in international activist places. A number of us were named in these rumors. David, are you aware of all this? In fact, I was informed by the lawyer that my name was given to him by a key activist in the community. The activist claimed that I was in the country days before your murder, David, and that I must have been involved in it. Thanks to Mama Universe for the Coalition of African Lesbians, who confirmed that I was in South Africa with them. Bro, that was not enough. I had to produce to the lawyer the air ticket that I used to get into Uganda for your funeral and burial, as well as the border stamps in my passport in order to get off the hook. I know of other activists that were interrogated because they were named to have been involved in your murder, but I don't know why and how their cases were concluded. Do you know about all this? If Enoch was the true murderer, then why were there suspicions that somebody else did it? Where were there real funded investigations? And what still don't we know? You might have a better eye lens than mine. That process got me wondering, David, exactly what circumstances surrounded your murder. I teamed up with a human rights defender that worked closely with you. We went to a renowned human rights lawyer and consulted about a neutral investigator to look into your case, even though an investigation was already happening. I informed the lawyer that a lot of testimonies about your fears days before your murder have not been put into consideration. I told him about what you had shared with me day before your death regarding death threats from known people. I added that you had so many international friends to whom you expressed your fear of being killed prior to that fateful day. Your computer was missing. Your email had been hacked into like a couple of days before your death? The lawyer advised that we hire a private investigator, and indeed, he recommended one that has done classical cases in Uganda. We then met with the investigator, who informed us that he was willing to do the job, to include talking to your family, to the Kuchu community, to close friends, and to your international colleagues that you were expressing your death fears to days before your death. We went to a human rights organization to request for their help in hiring this investigator. The organization informed us that there was one investigation going on. We argued that a second investigation would not hurt, but rather help the process. The private investigator had asked for $5,000 to bring results to the community, to your community, David. The organization told us that they were not in position to raise those funds. And with that, my brother, we dropped our case. It is 6 years since you left, bro. A man came forward and confessed that he killed you. People still accuse. They accuse or gossip about other people they believe killed you. Only you and your killer or killers know who murdered you. But your lips are tied, bro. Do you think a fresh investigation would do you and us justice? Do you think the real killer and therefore their possible collaborators were brought to justice? Do you hear me? We have never seen the findings of the investigation into your murder, David. We were informed that it was a large report, 100 pages or so. Only one sheet of paper was presented to us with nothing substantial. In fact, we learned that only a few people were privileged to look at the full report. Is there anything you think we should know that has been seated on? If I was an investigator, David, I would have done this for you. If you were here, you would have raised the resources to support a thorough investigation, the results of which would be known by concerned people by now. That is how you worked. The questions and concerns here are not unique to me, David. They are in the minds and hearts of many people who love you. If everyone with those questions wrote a letter to you, you would surely confirm this. The discussion around these issues has often turned into fights and intimidation, bro. I wonder if you see it all from where you are. So, my brother, this mystery is alive to death. What I know is that your work did not go in vain. I also know that if justice was not given to your murderer, it shall come someday. Rest in peace and power, my dear brother, comrade in the struggle, and friend. I will always love you. Victor. Mukasa.